I was like, oh my God, like I know, like I heard the song almost like where I wanted to take it in my head. And I literally pulled over to the side of the road, which is very illegal because those are for like emergency vehicles.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you doing this again. And happy birthday, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Hey, Dylan.
Hey,
Dylan,
how
what's
are
going
you?
on?
You got that birthday glow going on right now.
Well,
I know.
I just went indoor rock climbing, but I did a big climb. Apparently, when you're like fully whatever you say, you're pumped when you're just dead. So I'm pumped right now. My
You are
forearms are
pumped.
like not operational.
Well, that's awesome. So rock climbing, do any other big plans for your birthday?
I'm just, my best friend is getting married this weekend,
Oh,
and our other best friend is in town and has like a big Airbnb. So we're using her spot as like the hub, and I have a bunch of friends coming over. We're
that's
just
cool.
chilling. I mean, I honestly don't even care. They've been bugging me. I'm like, I guess just come over. So
That's cool.
we're having dinner. We're doing the whole thing.
Well, that's amazing. Happy birthday again.
Thank
Yes,
you so much.
happy birthday.
And what's going on, Dylan? I'm Adam. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Adam. Thanks for having us on.
Of course. I've met Christine a couple times in the past. You did my podcast when we were in the apartment. We just moved to Nashville, and we're in like an apartment, and there was like nothing in this room.
Yeah, I was gonna say your decor is different.
A little bit
You're
different. We
very
got a desk.
sunlit. You're very sunlit.
I got a new light. Yeah. So, and then I've met you when I was working the radio too, in
Yep.
San Diego and San Francisco. So great to have you back on. And so, Dylan, this is about you guys and your journey in music. We've heard K.Flay's story a bit, so I want to touch on it if that's cool. And then I would love to hear how you got into music and all of that, and of course, this new record that you have and how you both met and all that. Cool. Well, I guess first off, where were you born and raised, Dylan?
So I'm currently opening up my blinds right now, so you might hear the sound. I wanted to get. You made a sunlit comment, and I need more sun in here.
Oh,
You know.
I love that painting behind you, by the way.
Thank you. My dad painted it.
Did he really? That's awesome.
Yeah,
That
my
looks
dad's an
so
artist.
cool.
So shout out my dad.
That is awesome.
Shout out Greg. Yeah. So sorry. The question was my background.
Yeah, born and raised.
Yeah, born and raised. I was born in Manhattan in New York, and then we moved. My family moved to Park City, Utah, which is like a ski town in the mountains in Utah. It's pretty nice place to grow up. Very beautiful, very active. I was a little snowboarder and skateboarder and little all around punk. Lots of action sports and all that stuff. And then
Sure.
I moved back to most of my family's from California. I moved back to college. And early on, I wanted to be an actor, which led to I'm giving you the speed round, which led to me wanting to like make movies and films. And then I was like I saved up, bought my first video camera, and then that led to me wanting to go to film school. And I was in film school, and I was in the film industry for a bit, and then somehow that turned into me wanting to make electronic music, and here we are now. So I skipped a lot of stuff, but that's the very short time.
Rad. I got a couple of questions. Yeah, no, for sure. I grew up in Southern California.
Sorry, no questions. No questions. No,
oh, okay then. So you talked about skateboarding, snowboarding, all that stuff, like and getting a camera. So did you were you filming and everything like that when you were growing up? I mean, as I used to skateboard, so you'd film everything, edit from high 8 to VHS and all of that fun stuff. And did that affect your music taste at all?
Yeah, what's funny is so when I started filming, and I was a big action sports guy, but I started finding that I was having more fun being behind the camera, capturing these moments of me and my friends, or other people around town, and kind of editing into videos, like you said, and I got really into snowboard videos, skate videos, surf videos, anything that was kind of got me peaked, and then that kind of led into editing, which was kind of my main emphasis film. So I really enjoyed the process of taking all these parts that were meant to go together, but it was almost like a puzzle in a way to bring them together. And so I think flash forward to making music. When I started making music, I didn't have any musical background or any really musical theory knowledge, but I started producing by sampling. And I think in a way, my background of editing kind of like, that's how I was able to like, I'm like excuse me, I'm like a type of learner, we all have like learning styles.
Yeah.
My learning style is I have to do, like if someone's like, hey, here's these chord progressions, this is how you do it. I'm like, it literally comes in one ear and out the other. I have to literally sit there and just do it and then my brain goes, oh, okay. I don't recommend that learning style if you can choose. But in this instance, when I just learned by sampling. So I learned by taking these other sounds and, chopping them up and cutting them into these kind of beats and things. And I started realizing, okay, there's my first entry into the music. And I think what's great about electronic music is that you do have a lot at your fingertips. Now, when I started barely making music and beats and things, and probably 2009, 2010, there wasn't the tutorials they have online now, and there wasn't all these different things. So for me, it was kind of like I wasn't sure if I was doing it right, but it's pretty cool. I'm still learning, every day. So
yeah. I edited video as well. That's like where I really wanted to pursue, and it's such a difficult career. And I love music, so I ended up getting on the radio, which has a similar thing. I know what you're talking about with making beats, and like you have all these things, and you're kind of trying to condense it into one smaller piece that makes sense, right? Like if you were putting together a beat or a production, it's like, okay, I have all these sounds, these are going to go together, and then you're almost like kind of building within, like you would be an edit.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's definitely an element too where just like if you've heard the phrase like leaving it on the cutting room floor, like for editing, it's like, sometimes you have to leave some of the best things out to make the piece as a whole best. And I'm sure, as Christine knows as well, like, going through songs, there's sometimes we were like, oh, I love this part, but when you're able to let it go, it sometimes makes the song better as a whole, which I'm sure it happens. And sometimes it's the hardest part is to let certain things go that you get your heart set on, whether it's like demoitis or if it's whatever else it might be. So there's definitely a lot of parallels there,
for sure. And Christine, you grew up or you got into music in a DIY way. I remember you telling me it was like you were told to kind of learn everything, right?
Yeah. What's interesting, before I dive into that, just to piggyback off this, I think like you guys are sort of talking about this notion of like distillation, right? Like being an editor or being a producer, and being a songwriter, I think in many ways is about taking like all this shit and distilling it.
Sure.
And there's, you can film however many hours of wonderful footage of an amazing storyline, but like it must be distilled in a manner that's compelling and actually just comprehensible to people. And I think that that's what's really interesting. I've been having many kind of philosophical chats lately with friends about making music and sort of what it takes to do this job, which is to say it takes, I certainly don't think I'm the most talented person out there. I think talent is one part of it, but I think a lot of it is like, are you committed to distillation? Are you committed to, there's these other components. And so anyway, I just think that's interesting to consider that across many different creative pursuits.
If you're a writer, like you write maybe a big piece and it's like, okay, I got to cut it down into
like
little.
It's all about, right. And that process of distilling. And of course it happens in like, you're making whiskey or whatever, or like this occurs across all different formats. It's just interesting to consider. But yes, I also got into music in a roundabout fashion. I was having an argument with a guy. I was in college. I was like super serious, academic, focused. I was in the library every Saturday and Sunday, nerd life in a big way. I mean, I'm still in my nerd.
Smart, and you were going to Stanford,
nerds are good, but I'm still in my nerd era. But I got in an argument with this guy about music that was on the radio, and I was sort of like, well, I could do that. And he was like, you probably can't. And then I was like, well, let's see where this goes for the next 10 years.
Let's go.
I'll show you.
so it all started by I'll show you moment. That's just being extra petty.
Yeah, and just, you know, I think you again, to get a little philosophical, and I don't know, Dylan, if you connect with this, but I think that you have to be somewhat naive and deluded when you start this job, being like, yeah, I could probably do that. You know, like otherwise it's too daunting. Like it's just too, if you really knew everything that was going to happen and all that it was going to take, you'd be like, I'm not even going to try with that.
It's like you have to have like a sense of like naivety. Like you're like, sure. Like you don't know, but you're like, yeah, I could probably do this.
Yeah.
I think a big part of that is like just what I never really like kind of, you know, and I guess there's a being naive a little bit, but I think what a lot of people have a hard time with, and it's understandable, is there's a lot of rejection in this industry. And I'm sure, as you know, like it's not necessarily like, oh, you suck. You know, it's very, you're constantly, you know, you're always at battle with what you want, what other external sources want. And there's always this kind of self-doubt, you know, and then on top of that, you know, there's a lot of things that people don't see in the music industry that it's weird because we're so fortunate to get to be able to even make a living making music, right? Like there's, if you think of the millions upon millions of people probably trying to make it in music all around the world, and you know we're able to tour and create is we're so fortunate. But there's if this is definitely not a healthy job for like your mental state a lot of times. I think that was
correct.
But that was my general thesis, I think, if that made sense.
No, for sure.
Yeah. So I'm sure if you could go back and tell yourself at Stanford, you know, like if you had that moment like in a superhero movie where you come back through the portal and you're like, Christine,
stop,
don't do it. Yeah, no.
Yes, and you know, I'm like preempting the next question, but I feel like part of the reason, Dylan, you and I, because I remember when we first Zoomed and like I was at like my old place and like blah, blah, blah. I feel like one of the reasons you and I connected is that we have I think you and I have a similar kind of heady perspective on some of this in terms of thinking of these sort of abstract and philosophical elements of this career and this pursuit. And it really is, there's so much beauty in it. And there's so much joy. And there's also a lot of, you know, angst and pain and struggle. And I think it takes different forms, at least it has throughout my career. And I feel like a lot of the collaborations that really resonate for me and a lot of the people that I really connect with, we share like I don't want to call it a heaviness, but like, you know, that there's a depth to it. Maybe that's the right way to say it.
I remember you telling me last time, Christine, that when you know, early on you got signed to RCA and then you got dropped from the label and you had these songs that you had to kind of just give to them. And you said it was probably the best thing that ever happened to you because you were able to start fresh and kind of, you know, refocus on what you really wanted to do at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I think moments that I perceived as failures as they were occurring in retrospect have been some of the most formative and positive positive moments of my life. Though it, you know, at the time I felt like a failure, and I felt incredibly disoriented, but those are, I think, the inflection points when you have nothing to lose in a sense. And when you're in those positions, I think you can go down a dark path, which is not recommended. But if you're able to kind of go towards the little sunlight peeking through the crack, it's really, really like resilience building, character building. It's very informative. It's like, oh, actually, this is who you are, and this is where you should go. But it's tricky. I don't know, Dylan. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, 100% it does. And I think what you said very eloquently, as always, I think I think what you're saying in a way that resonates with me is that like we as artists, musicians, you know, when you look at a piece of art like a painting or something physical, you know, a lot those biggest pieces a lot of times resonate with you, right? You know, you're looking at something right here, it's a 2D, you know, or image or whatever, and you know, it might be a couple marks on a piece of painting, but for some people or for some of those pieces, you resonate with something deeper behind it. And a lot of times, I think, like, to me, kind of what Christine was saying that resonates with me is that like when I started my career, I wasn't thinking about a label or a scope of this or that. I was just saying, I want to create. My mind is free from any distractions. I want to create what is coming out of Dylan when I sit down, right? And it was just for fun. And I think that a lot of musicians, that's why you always see like, you know, the sophomore slump or the, you know, whatever, because all of a sudden now you're put in a box. Now you're putting, people want, you got to sound like this forever, or you got to do this, or you got to do that. And what, like whenever you're freed from something like a label obligation or whatever, it allows you to kind of almost go back to that like infancy of when you started and find that joy again of making music and being creative. Because I think that a lot of times we lose that because we're making music for people other than ourselves again. I don't know, that's how.
No, that makes a lot of sense. For sure. Because then you're wrapped up in like you said earlier, like what do other people want? What you have all these other cooks in the kitchen, I would think, instead of like you just sitting down. You made this record, which eventually gets the attention of everybody else.
But yeah, I think that it's kind of like the, you know, I don't know how to say this without sounding like, it's like if you've made it to a certain point and people like your music and they're coming to see you, like they're there to see you for a reason. Like there's something that you're doing that's connecting. But a lot of times it's easy as an artist to kind of start to stray from that, because, and I don't mean not experimenting with your music, but like you start to kind of lose that spark and that joy that made your music the music it was when that resonated with people. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
No, I hear what you're saying for sure. Well, I'm curious because when was that moment for you that, you know, you were going to film school and you were doing all these other things? You said you're pursuing acting, and then you just started, you know, DJing or making beats out of, you know, just being creative. And then when does that turn into like, oh, wow, like people are resonating with this and it's now starting to do something. And then eventually, obviously, it's now your career.
You know, I don't remember specific, like there wasn't like a specific like aha moment, but I think, you know, I always wanted to, when I was young, I tried piano lessons. I played trumpet in band in elementary school. I you know, you know, I tried playing guitar for a little bit, but nothing ever really stuck with me. But I was always the kid that, like, all my friends I would be the one making the mix CDs for everybody, or I always, like, I have music on 24/7. Like as soon as we're hanging up from this, music's coming on right now. And all genres. I'll listen to, you know, heavy metal to classical to hip hop to electronic, whatever. And I think for me, I always just, you know, it's weird. I don't know. I just kind of followed the progression of, you know, one thing into the next, And when I started making music, it was like the first time that I felt like, oh, this isn't like even feel like a job. I feel like I'm just expressing myself. And, you know, I think that I finally had the confidence to even try to do it because of the ability that, you know, I could have a laptop and I could do everything here. I didn't necessarily need a drum kit or a guitar or, you know, necessarily to know every in and out of, you know, every single chord progression. And I think that, that freedom just gave me, you know, it was exciting. And I was, for a long time, I was trying to be what I thought was successful. And at the time it was this kind of very popular house music from like Europe, and you know, the European guys were coming over. It was right when dance music was really starting to boom in the United States. And I was like, okay, I gotta be like that. I gotta be like that. And then it was like, every time I sat down at the computer, something else would come out. It was like in that world, but it was a little bit, you know, and I would fight it. And it wasn't until I kind of was like, all right, well, this is what I'm making. This comes out. And then, you know, started having success. But it really wasn't until like other DJs and other big artists started playing my music that it was kind of like, oh, wait, okay, you know,
Was there
maybe
like
there's something here, but you know, I Yeah, I think for me the biggest thing is I had a good job. You know, was working towards union and editors union, and that was going to be my life. And
Mm-hmm.
I gave it up to work on music and quit my job and just kind of did odd jobs. And I think that was the best decision I could have ever made, because it was on me at that point too. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go all in, I guess. But
like, what was the kind of turning point? Do you remember? Like you said, other DJs were playing your song, and was it just kind of like a slow build that eventually became, bigger and bigger shows?
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, I think the turning point was, when I fully quit my job and I was doing other stuff. Like it got pretty dark, and I got pretty, to the point where, my parents are both artists, so they've always been supportive, but they weren't like, hey, we're gonna pay for your lifestyle to do whatever. It was very much like I kind of had a pride thing too, where I was like, hey, I got to make this work, or I got to go back and do something else, and I think that when I started to have the support from my peers or other people, and then I finally got a chance to talk to like an agent, and they're like, hey, like we think we can get you some shows. People are requesting you to come play. That was when I really was like, holy cow, like an agent, like that's amazing. So, I mean, I had an agent when I was a little kid, and I think I was a background actor in a couple of Disney Channel original films. No big deal.
That's cool.
Yes.
So so it's like, this wasn't my first agent, but no, I'm just kidding. But it was a big moment where I felt like, okay, like all the work, all the years of, kind of quitting many times, almost quitting many times, it finally was excited, very grateful for that.
Were your parents ever like, I don't know if you should, like, because they're artists and probably know how difficult it was to get to a certain point and how the uncertainty of it all,
in that
they
sense,
ever like, yeah.
I think in that sense I was very, very fortunate, because they were much more open, but I could definitely, they, like, my parents are one usually worry about certain things, and, but they would call and, how you doing? Like, like I could tell that there was, because my life, I really kind of started touring and all that stuff when I was about 25. So from, graduating college into that, 21 years old. So about those 4 or 5 years was really like, it was kind of like, okay, well, now that this music thing doesn't work out, I'm kind of been off the normal big boy job market for a while. And it's, I can't come back to them and be like, hey, yeah, sorry, I was trying to be even though in this town there's a lot of struggling actors and artists and stuff. But anyways, yeah, just super grateful. I mean, they never pressured me, but they was always kind of like, hey, like you got to figure this out. So I think that there was definitely that, I always, your parents care for you, and you always have that. But I think it was good that I was almost more hard on myself than they were, in a way, I think. So yeah.
I remember last time we talked, Christine, you had a similar thought when that RCA thing didn't work out, because you're talking about how before that you were working as like a teacher, you were teaching like SATs, I think, right?
Yeah,
you had a pretty good job, and you would work on your records in your parents' basement before going to work. And then did you have that thought as well? Like, do I have to go back to teaching, or am I gonna have to go get a real job again? Or did you know it's still music?
I think I hadn't reached the point yet where I was really considering plan Bs.
Okay.
And I do think there is, again, whether it's delusion, commitment, psychosis, I'm not sure of the noun, but there is a common trait amongst my friends and peers who actually have made this their life and career, that there's just sort of some preternatural faith that you will figure it out. And I think really when you start to consider those other options, it kind of erodes that commitment in a certain sense, or it starts to put little chinks in that armor, or that like thing you're building. And so I don't think I got to that place. And often, I'll get asked in interviews like, well, what would you be doing if you weren't doing this? And like, which isn't a bad question. It's just a question for which I essentially have no answer. on some level,
Yeah.
because it's also so fucking surprising that I'm even doing this. So to answer the question, what would I be doing if not this? I mean, like, I don't know, pick your little multiverse, pick your little, I have no clue. Like, I might have invented like a hot dog company. Like, at this point, nothing is like, that's how, Dylan, that's how I feel, at least about like this, is that one of the harder parts, or slash more interesting parts about having a job like this, is that you are sometimes forced to really, really look into the eyes of like the sheer uncertainty and luck and randomness of it all, which is both invigorating and incredibly frightening. And so, you know, that's it. I don't even know what the question was, but that is my answer.
Okay. You answered it. I was just wondering if you had to go back to, if you ever thought about having to go back to doing those.
So no.
Those
so the answer is
jobs.
no.
Okay.
I mean, I think what this career has taught me is that I will figure it out. I'll find a way to make it work. I'll find a way to make a living. I'll find a way to like be true to myself. And even when I make mistakes and mess up and disappoint myself, I'll figure out how to come back stronger. And like that as a skill set, I don't know if you can put it on a resume, but I do think I would make a good employee. I just don't know where I would be employed.
Okay.
I think that's a good point. I think that there's like, as a musician, and you know, if I think a lot of the people that do make it to what some would consider success is everyone goes all in, and you just have to almost have this unshakable belief in yourself, even though you might not necessarily have the best. Doesn't necessarily mean you're the most confident person, but I think that there's something, like you said, there's maybe a screw loose in us where it's like, I know, like, this is going to happen. I don't know how, but we're going to make it happen. And I think that I don't know, like, there's never really been like a plan B for me. I've just kind of gone with the flow of how I am, just kind of, but like, I've always like, I remember since I was a little kid, I always felt the most comfortable on stage, and not because of a like narcissistic, like, hey, look at me, I'm cool, I'm on stage. It was like, I get so much joy from bringing joy to other people. And I don't know, I feel more comfortable on stage than I do walking around everyday life sometimes. And so I think, like, for me, I feel like I'll always find a way to somehow be there. And yeah, I don't know.
I interviewed, I can't remember who it was.
I don't know if it's healthy though or not. that's a whole other conversation for another day.
I interviewed somebody, and they're like, they said something along the lines of like, if don't have a backup plan, because if you have a backup plan, if you have something to fall back on, you was basically what they meant, which I thought was like really, interesting. And it makes a lot of sense, because then it's like, well, I can always just go back and do this.
Yeah, you're almost manifesting that it won't work.
Right.
Which then in turn, maybe whether it's the universe or whatever. And I think, like Christine said it, it's like, when you kind of are able to get rid of that there even is a plan B, you're kind of like, this is it, or I'm literally just spinning off into a black hole of nothingness forever. Yeah. So I think I'll take this,
Sure, for sure. Wow. Well, how did you both meet? I'm curious.
The internet.
Oh, really?
Well, we got connected through, I feel like, your publisher. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right?
I believe so. I don't even remember the specific. Yeah, that is weird that I don't remember the specifics, but.
Well, it's because it's like kind of just made sense. I mean, I feel like we had a lot of mutual friends and like crossover, and I've done like some different kind of collaborations and things like in the electronic space, but we ended up Zooming and chatting, and I really enjoyed that. And then we were just kind of like talking. I think this is correct, Dylan, you can tell me if I'm wrong. We were kind of just like talking. You had sent over a few ideas, but I sort of like didn't have any sparks with it. And then I had randomly set up a couple of Zoom days, because this is like actual COVID, lockdown.
So this
COVID.
Is when everyone was locked down still.
Yeah. Okay. I was writing a couple songs with an artist named Yoshi Flower, who's super awesome. and also from the Midwest like myself. And we worked on this just little acoustic song, which then I sent to you, Dylan. And that was the genesis of this collaboration.
Oh, is that what the riff in the beginning of the song is from? There's like or is that so different?
I don't remember. I think there was only one small part that we used from the original guitars, but to touch on what Christine said, yeah, I mean, it was a Zoom call that I think what I really liked was like, I could tell that I liked Christine right off the bat, because when she got on the Zoom, she's like, look, I don't remember specifically exactly what you said word for word, but it was kind of like, look, like before we do anything, like, let's just vibe out. And I was like, okay, I like this, because I could tell that it was like one of the most important things when you're collaborating in music, and that I've found personally, is that anybody can get together and anybody can go, you can make a record together. But I feel like when the real juices flow, or, you know, the sparks happen, it's when you're able to connect with the person that you're working with on a level, and the music like almost like is not important for a minute. It's like, who are you? What are you trying to say? What's your philosophy? You know, what's going on? You know, I think I remember you asking about the album, and I was telling you about it, the direction I was trying to take with some of this new music, and, you know, it resonated with you. And then we were talking, and I was like, you know, I love everything you're saying. And so like she said, I had sent over some ideas that were it was almost like ideas that I had just kind of made to see if maybe there'd be something. And it was almost like after she talked, I was on a different wavelength. And then I remember we were texting back and forth, and you had those sessions with Yoshi, and you sent me over a couple demo options via text. And I've said this in other interviews, but I remember I was driving, because I live in LA, and well, I guess we both do. And
You're
you know,
sitting
we
in
drive
traffic.
everywhere. Yeah. And I was heading home from something, and I got the text. I was like, all right, sweet. I'm in the car, listen to it on a good system, put them on. And I was scrolling through, and I really like this one. I really like this one. And then Superhuman came on, and it was purely acoustic. The vocals were there, and it was a demo version. But I remember it was like, I remember driving and almost having this, like, you know, if it was in a movie, it would have been like the moment, you know, and you know, where the light comes from behind me, and I like get ethereal and have a moment. And it was just like, I was like, oh my God, like I know, like I heard the song almost like where I wanted to take it in my head. And I literally pulled over to the side of the road, which is very illegal because those are for like emergency vehicles. And I like re-listened to it
Well, this was an
again.
emergency, right? I mean,
yes, clearly, yes. Because I was like, all right, well, I can focus and drive, but I'm like, wait a second, like what is going on? I need to like I pulled over, and it was just one of those things where I knew. And I remember, I think I literally texted you, and I was like, oh my God, Superhuman's amazing. And I drove home that night. I literally went into my studio, and I think I like mocked up some really rough, like kind of drop or like whatever I did. I sent it to you, and I'm like, this is crazy, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, Christine was probably like, whoa, slow down. Like,
no, I loved it.
Yeah. But it was, and I think that's what's super exciting, is that, you know, it was purely meant to be. I feel like it was great. So
it sounds like it's a little bit different way than I was picturing some collaborations happening, where it's like, I have this song, and here, can you add a top line to it, or can you do this to it? It sounds like you guys just wrote it pretty much together from scratch, aside from that little demo that Christine had sent over to you.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, the credit goes to Christine and Yoshi for creating the idea that sparked everything. But then from that point, when it turned into my Frankenstein world, and I turned it into what it is now, you know, Christine was very good about, you know, and I was very appreciative of, you know, the notes that she had, and also her attention to detail, because she's very, and I'm putting words in your mouth, but you're very, which I really, really love, is that you know what you want, and you know what you want to sound like. And it's like, I appreciate that, because sometimes I kind of want to do my thing and do this. And I think it was great to have her saying, okay, you know, here's what I gave you, here's what you did, now let's reel it back in a little bit and meet in the middle. So it was very collaborative, but not in a physical, like she and I are sitting next to each other and you know, touching every single button together.
So this is all done, you said, during, you know, the lockdown. So it was all file sharing back and forth.
Pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember you told me, Christine, that you recorded at least inside voices because you only had that part of the EP out when we were talking, or you don't even think you had it out yet. You just had a 4-letter word. And you said that you recorded some of those first 5 songs in your friend's like house or something in their dining room, like they're gone or something. Like,
Yes.
was
I
this
mean,
similar, or were you?
this was at my old apartment.
Okay.
But I mean, I think what's interesting, just to backtrack slightly about this collaboration and the nature of collaboration, is I think sometimes we have the notion it's like 2 people, 3 people, however many, get in a room and then a thing comes out. And it's actually been my experience that often collaboration is a lot less linear than that, and it's a little bit more unpredictable. And sometimes like something someone says to you in a conversation like months back like resonates. Like, why did I even send you that song, Dylan? You know what I mean? Like on some level, like there's a part of my brain that goes like, I don't know, because I have a lot of demos, right? Or a lot of things I'm working on, and like there's a part of me that's like, something makes me feel like this is part of like, this is something that would connect. And then the collaboration like takes on its own life from there. I've just found, I think that's one of the really exciting parts of this, is that, and COVID did kind of facilitate some very interesting collaborations. One of the sort of, positive byproducts of a horrible thing was just that I think it allowed collaborations to happen in unconventional ways, which can lead to really special songs. And that's kind of what this felt like for me is, there's a reason like there's the Postal Service record feels so special, right? It's like, it was like, what, I don't know, it was weird. And sometimes like those kinds of collaborations are really exciting. So not saying we're the Postal Service.
I think I
am not Ben Gibbard. I look nothing like Ben Gibbard.
I think that's a great point. I think that like some of the best music is when it's like the unconventional stuff. And for me, it's so great to get an outside perspective from, we're all kind of in a bubble sometimes in our respective genres, quote unquote, or worlds that we're in. And so like, getting Christine's perspective and as a fan of her music too, it's like, it was really cool because it kind of put me in a headspace that I hadn't been in, and was able to approach the song, in a way where I almost wanted to create a rock alternative. I hate the word alternative, but like a rock, album, like song, but like not with, electronic instruments in a way, so it was kind of cool that it manifested in that way, and it wouldn't have happened, if I was just making it with another dance artist or something like that. So yeah.
On your record, you have a handful of other collaborations or other features on it. Were those similar, or was this a kind of a special song as far as that went? Not that they're not all special and this one isn't, but you know what I mean? Like when it came to how those came together.
This was probably the most like unique in a sense, because a lot of the features were either like we got together in person, or we, started it remote and then came in and did a couple sessions. But I think because of the nature of, a portion of this album was made during the quarantine. So, like we talked about, that was the only real way you could work. And so I think that we were all stuck inside, and I think that it really made a lot of people that I know personally that, work in the music industry or musicians, I found that everyone seemed really inspired, because at first, everyone's down, we're all scared, but it's like everyone kind of had to stop and say, okay, well, it's back to square one. And what do I want to say that I haven't been saying? Or what's inspiring me right now that, for me personally, I was nonstop. I wasn't saying no to shows. I was taking everything. I was, having success on the outside, but inside I was having a very bad time. And I didn't almost realize it. And it was like the pandemic literally forced me to be like, you're done. Sorry, bud. And that was kind of this moment where I was like, whoa, like, it's almost like I stepped out of a haze and was like, what the hell have I been doing? Like, I'm not happy. Why am I not happy? Because I'm making money and I have, shows and, fans, but I was like, I'm not fulfilled. And it's because I was no longer making music for myself. I was making music for what I thought I needed to do, or for an external source. And the pandemic kind of was like, hey, we're back to before you had a career, before anything like that. And it was kind of like, all right, I'm gonna experiment again. I'm gonna sit down and just make some weird stuff. And, obviously there's a lot of songs that end up on the cutting room floor that are pretty wild, but, it was exciting because I got to finally do things like this song with Christine, where like I didn't even realize that I wanted to do that all along, but it was like it opened up a portal, and here we are. So,
well, the song's amazing, and the visualizer you put together is really cool as well. I was going to ask you, Christine, like, how hard was it to just sit completely still in that chair for 4 minutes?
You know what was hard? You know what was hard was my blinking. I don't know if you remember this, Dylan.
Oh yeah.
You guys had to deal with it. Like, I needed to not blink, but like something about both the instruction then to not blink and like the fan or whatever was happening in that room was making me need to blink. And that was my
like, don't blink
struggle.
so you can think about it is blinking.
Oh my God. And all I can think about is blinking. It was like, is this like, I don't even know what part of my brain this is working out. So sitting still was no problem. Apparently, I will lose in a staring contest. That's what I learned. But
it's like when someone says don't laugh and you laugh.
Right.
Right.
It was really cool. I mean, I think, it was really rad to be in that environment and just see like Dylan, your vision, and it's always as a featured artist, you're kind of stepping into someone else's world, and it's very exciting when that world is aesthetically realized. And to like your whole team, and like I know you like just talking to everyone's like you guys have known each other for so long, like it was a really cool environment to be in. So I really enjoyed it. For me, it's like it's kind of the best. I get to just hop in and like be a part of your thing and do it, and it's really fun. So I love that part.
Yeah, in the beginning, cool. I thought maybe it was just a photo that was kind of being warped, like moved, and then I noticed that you blinked, like maybe 2 or 3 times throughout the whole thing. But then I was like, well, I'm glad if you didn't blink, then I thought maybe it was just a photograph that they, in post production they're able to kind of manipulate, but that added to it. And then I'm watching your hands. I watched it like 3 times to see, and you don't move. Like I was so shocked how good you were at just sitting there.
Well, listen, this is. Let Law and Order or whatever know I'm ready to be a dead body. I'm ready for that.
There you go.
I was gonna say you could have another career in like one of those like statue people that are like in downtown, like it was Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco or something. But yeah, it's a cool video. Very, very cool video. And you had collaborations as well over Zoom during the pandemic. I remember, Christine, you're saying, well, at least on the album with Travis Barker and Tom Morello. So those probably were a bit different. Obviously, I think you said cool. You just kind of just sent those over, right, to them.
Yeah.
As full songs.
That was just sent them the whole thing and was like, rip, go out, rip. I don't need to tell you what to do, literally.
Yeah.
So I'll just let you go ahead and do that.
Sure. So cool.
Yeah, which is really fun. So it's like, I'm grateful to have that era hopefully over. But it did yield some really cool things, which I'm personally very grateful for. So
just because I hadn't had a chance to ask you about it, with Outside Voices, which then you put together, right, as an album.
Yes.
Was that written? Did you have all those songs when Inside Voices was done, or did you write those after the fact?
I had maybe half of them done and the other half not. So I was actually able to finish parts of that record in person, which was cool. Which was really nice. So it's there's a lot of different like little micro eras in that record. Probably similar to Reset for you, Dylan.
Cool. Yeah. And you just hadn't have it. You only were, and I don't even think you announced that it was going to be another EP. It was just, hey, I'm going to put this one EP out at the time. And you just did a big tour too.
Yeah, just got back. Yeah, it was really great. Shows went awesome. And it's always, I think it's informative for me, as I'm beginning to write the next record, just understanding again what I want to enact up there, what's connecting, how am I enjoying performing, because to the beginning of our conversation, re-engaging with that beginner's mindset and just being like, what's exciting to me, not what do other people think is interesting, but like what is invigorating and how can I tap into that. So it was really good. And
what was I didn't get a chance to see, what was your stage setup like? Because I know your one for Solutions was nuts. Did you do similar?
It was crazy. I did something. I did I switched the emphasis from stage setup. So basically, for anyone, we built this for the last big tour. We built this crazy like plexiglass pyramid, which we lit from within, and my drummer and guitarist were like ensconced within, and then I like climbed all over it and stuff like that. So that was very cool. For this one, focused much less on set pieces, and instead I wrote. So it's a 90-minute show, and it runs. I have like monologue. It's almost like a stage setup. So basically, like, it was pretty rad. Like, I even went to an acting coach. I like fully kind of went into this. So it's like basically like rock show, crazy shit. Lights go out, spotlight.
And then I'm
almost like a one woman show kind of thing.
Yeah. So
That's
I'm
awesome.
like delivering this story, which is about kind of like 3 different voices in my head in different points in my life, and talking about like, sort of the point of it all being this greater acceptance that all of us are lots of different things, and the enemy is repression. So that was that, but
that's cool.
I have to say, not to take us off on because I know we need to end in a sec anyhow,
yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting. Really, I was very outside of my comfort zone, and I was like, when day one of rehearsal, I was like, I need to step in day one of rehearsal and be confident as hell. Like, I need to have everything memorized. I need to deliver it, because I need to just, if I'm not confident, I mean, you guys know, you've watched someone on stage be not like secure in what they're doing, and you're like, oh my God. So it was amazing. It was challenging. Every night I had to like, do the damn thing, but it was really exciting.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Yeah. And Dylan, you got a bunch of shows coming up too, from what I see on your tour schedule.
Yeah. Tons of shows. I got a chance to kind of preview and tour a little bit. We were working on this really cool kind of new stage / visual experience for my fans. And unfortunately, some of the shows we weren't able to do because we ended up, it's I guess it's a good problem. The scope and the level of what we were trying to do wasn't going to be achievable in the time that I had. And I wanted to make sure that people had a time to digest the album first before, because the album wasn't even out. The album had gotten postponed a couple times, just typical label, stuff and scheduling. So we're hoping to do kind of some couple big shows this fall, possibly even the top of next year. And we're working right now. We're doing this big like warehouse production presentation where I'm like going to do kind of like the show for a smaller group of people and like show people like what we've been working on. It's really cool. We have these incredible, I've been kind of doing hands-on with a couple different visual artists to create like every moment in the song, like visually kind of like represented so that like everything is timed and perfectly, to the, use technology to its peak, I guess, but I've never really done that before on my side, and here I am on this album, and I really want to kind of have people take a full journey on me, not only through the album, but like through all the different mashups and some of my old records and everything in between. So I'm really excited for people to kind of experience that, because I've been working on this album for a while, and then my other project Side Piece has been having a lot of traction. So that's been really fun, but it's kind of fun to come back into this world, but sometimes I don't know which face I'm wearing, so I don't know.
Well, awesome. Thank you both for doing this. This has been so much fun. It's always great to chat with you, Christine, and Dylan. Thank you so much for being here. It's been amazing. I do have one more quick question. I want to know if you guys, or if I can get an answer from each of you, if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Yes. Okay. So I think this kind of ties back into what we were talking about earlier in the conversation about that kind of infallible belief in yourself, is that I think, you know, the people that I've met that have had success, the people that I look up to in all genres of music, have had success because they put the time and effort and work in. And I feel like a lot of people kind of ask that question and they kind of are looking for the, oh, just do this and you'll make it. And it's kind of like, it's two things. I think it's take the time to put the work in to find out who you are and what you want to say. Because I think in a way, there's so many other musicians out there, and, you know, what separates, you know, me, Dylan, Party Favor from, you know, everybody else in my world, or, you know, maybe Christine in her world. What are you trying to say? What makes you different? But at the same time, I think it, like, understanding that it doesn't just come overnight, and it sometimes might seem like that for some people, and maybe there's a couple, you know, things where it does happen. But I think that when you put the time in, it really starts to show, and I think that people can see that, because it's almost like you're like sacrificing for your career, but by like your own effort. I don't know if that makes sense or not. I don't know. I was thinking about that like a lot of people just expect a quick fix, and it's like, it's not. Take some time to find who you are and what you want to say as an artist, I think. But
no, that makes total sense. Thank you so much. What about K.Flay? You got anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think as we're now re-entering the time of in-person events, for me in my career, and I think in certain ways more than ever now, just because the internet is so vast and large, I think playing shows and being physically on stage, performing and enacting what you do is so crucial. Like, so many of the really important connections I've made, so many of the important things I've learned about myself and my music have all derived from the live space. And there is something about, you know, we've kind of talked about this notion of pressure, right? When you don't have a plan B, that pressure creates a certain type of momentum. There's also the pressure of being on stage. Like, it's one thing to put out music online, and this is not me knocking that, but it's another thing to be up on stage in front of a bunch of people who are like, what you got, you know? And that pressure, again, I think is what we're talking about, is productive tension. And I think being on stage and performing live creates a type of productive tension that's really important. So I just always encourage, you know, my younger artists that I meet and people who are beginning to, as much as you can, get into that space and learn from it, because it's like, it showed me so much. And it also, by the way, helped me like develop and create community with actual people who are into the same shit as I am, and other musicians. So I just think as the live space kind of comes back, really investing in that for young artists is so crucial.